Memorandum from Director of Finance, Gambia Ports Authority, to Managing Director, Gambia Ports Authority, dated 16th December 2008, re. Payments to a Regional Maritime University, Ghana, plus related documents, admitted marked SC 80.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Obate, the other matter on which we would like some clarification is the rehabilitation of the ferries. These were the ferries Johe, Kanilai, Soma, and Farafenye.
Yes.
Again, Mr. Jiba has given evidence regarding payments that, according to the records before this commission, were made by Taiwan in connection to the ferries.
Yes, ma'am.
Our understanding from him is that Taiwan was required or was requested to provide some financing for the ferries, but Gambia Ports Authority also provided some financing for the ferries.
Yes, ma'am.
But I would like you to clarify and to provide documents regarding this matter, and in particular the issue of Sheep Bow, the Dutch company that was paid almost, I believe, 400 to 500,000 US dollars,
yes,
but which disappeared into thin air.
Yes.
Yes. Could you explain to the Commission?
Yes, ma'am. It happened that in 2012, the ambassador of Taiwan to the Gambia at the time engaged our management that he had a discussion with the former president. Apparently, the information he gave us is that he was attempting to cross over from Banjul to Bara with the ferries and had some difficulty in crossing because of the poor service. The ambassador of Taiwan then called the former president, and it was agreed that Taiwan would assist in the rehabilitation of the ferries. Thereafter, the then ambassador of Taiwan engaged our management, and we were already in the process of acquiring equipment and machinery for the rehabilitation of the whole of the ferries fleet. Now, the then ambassador of Taiwan made two payments to Gambia Ports Authority. The first one was for an amount of $747,692 US dollars, 40 cents, by way of Mega International Commercial Bank, New York, check dated 19 December 2012.
As a matter of interest, the check, was it made out to the Gambia Ports Authority?
The check was drawn in the name of Secretary General, Office of the President.
How was it cashed?
The check was remitted to the GPA, and we lodged it into our Trust Bank Gambia Limited account.
And so it was Trust Bank that sent it for clearing?
Yes.
And deposited the funds in your account. So how does Mega International Commercial Bank New York feature in it?
That's the check that was drawn.
Draw back.
Okay. Okay. The check from Taiwan was drawn on that account?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that bank. All right, thank you. So the second?
The second payment that Taiwan under this pledge was for $728,153 US dollars, 0.92 cents. And this was made by way of funds transfer by a letter from the Office of the President authorizing for funds transfer to the governor, the Central Bank of Gambia, for a transfer from the Youth Development Fund account to the GPS RBS account in the UK.
Okay.
And this letter was with reference PR/C/822.
So Taiwan provided a total of $1.47 million.
Yes.
That's what you're saying?
Yes.
All right. So how does Shipbao come into it? That's a lot of money. Are you saying that the ferry, the rehabilitation of the engines costs more than that?
Yes, the total rehabilitation of the ferries was to the tune of $164,130,838 for the Johe, Kanilai, Soma, and Farafene ferries.
Is it an engine replacement?
It comprised engine replacement, steering and propulsion systems, hull works, painting, and fittings.
Okay. So tell us about Shipbao. How did Shipbao come into it?
Shipbao came into play when, at the time of procuring new engines for these ferries, the GPA management launched an RFQ as request for quotation from...
What is an RFQ?
Request for quotation from known suppliers of marine engines, the likes of Shipbao, Damen Shipyard, Sudeki. We had another company from UK, CMI. They are traditional suppliers to the GPA.
So there was a tender?
Yes, there was a request for quotation by way of tender. Yes,
okay.
And Shipbao happened to be one of the most responsive for the supply of 8-man engines for the Kanilai, Soma, and Farafena ferries. And thereafter, the GPA entered into a contract with Shipbao for the supply of 4 new-man engines for the Kanilai ferry, 2 new-man engines for the Soma ferry, and 2 new-man engines for the Farafene ferry, for a contract value of €680,076.
Okay.
After 50% first installment payment was made to Shipbao as per the contract towards the procurement of these 8 new engines and the transfer instructions, we have to show that the money was paid to them, and the total amount paid for these engines, it was in 2 lots, and the total was $384,677. After some time, Shipbao failed to deliver, and the recovery efforts proved difficult because the letters that were sent to them at their known address at the time were returned undelivered. So the GPA management made efforts to locate the company through the Gambian mission in Belgium, and information came to us that the company was no longer in business as they were in liquidation. Thereafter, the GPA management sought advice from the Attorney General's chambers in Gambia, and it came out that the GPA can engage the services of overseas solicitors, that is Mayor Brown, who were already engaged by government in arbitration cases. At some point, Mayor Brown also informed the GPA that from the look of the matter, it does not seem to be a very complex case, and requested for some payments so that they can pursue the matter for the recovery on behalf of the GPA. At some point, there was no commitment from management to go ahead and make the payments to Shipbao. Mayor Brown, sorry.
No, to make the payment to the lawyers.
To the lawyers, ma'am.
Who was the managing director at the time?
At the time, this was in 2016. I believe it was Mr. Lamin El Sanya.
What I don't understand, was there any security provided by Shipbao
No security was provided for.
Was 680,000 euro supplies contract?
There was a contract, ma'am.
Yes, but 680,000 euros contract without security, no performance security, performance guarantee. Isn't that normal for Ports Authority's procurement rules?
Well, it's not normal, ma'am. But in the contract, there's a clause that indicates payment guarantees, especially advance payment guarantee.
Was an advance payment guarantee given?
No, ma'am.
Why?
Well, what I can say at the level of the management is that that was an oversight.
Oversight? Who's responsible for procurements at Gambia? Who was at this time responsible for procurement at Gambia Ports Authority?
There's a procurement committee.
Did this matter go to GPPA?
I believe not.
Wasn't it required to go to GPPA?
Yes, ma'am. Normally, procurements are all required to go to GPPA.
So why didn't it go to GPPA?
Well, at the time, the information that was being shared amongst our management was that there was a real urgency to procure these engines from known suppliers. And at the time, the information that was also shared was that the Taiwanese ambassador to the Gambia then was more or less intimating to us that we needed to act with urgency so that the funds can be released. I'm sure in that urgency that may have explained why the process went for direct request for quotation and not through GPPA.
Did you seek a waiver from GPPA?
No, ma'am.
Who was heading this procurement committee? Is it yourself?
No, ma'am.
You are a member
No, ma'am.
of the committee? Who was managing director?
At the time, it was Mr. ML Jiba who was the managing director.
Did it go to the board? You don't know?
I don't have that information, but
We will require that you provide, I don't think we have requested it, a list of all your chairs and secretaries that served during this period and directors.
it was provided, ma'am.
It was provided?
Yes, ma'am.
Very well. We'll be asking the director to provide all resolutions of your, or the secretary, sorry, to provide all resolutions of your institution. So you did not ask for an advance payment guarantee. By you, I mean GPA. You did not ask for a performance guarantee, I suppose.
Well, according to the contract, the payments would have been secured by the advance payment guarantee.
I can see that in at least the copy that I have. This is the agreement dated, was signed on the 21st of December 2012.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, clause 3.2.2 states, for the first instance of 50%, the supplier must submit to the procuring organization invoices and an advance payment guarantee.
Yes, ma'am.
Securing the payment of the full amount of the payment installment.
Yes, ma'am.
And you are saying none was provided?
No.
So who was making the payments? If none was provided, why was any payment made at all? Can you, from your records, who authorized that payment be made without an advance payment guarantee?
Well, there was a contract, and the request for payments would have been sent and then approval given.
Yes, yes. We want to know who approved it. Certainly there was a contract, but the contract says don't pay until you have an advance payment, or payment should be made against an advance payment guarantee.
Well,
so if no advance payment guarantee was received, no payment should have been made.
Very well, ma'am.
Do you have a document showing who approved the payment, who authorized payment?
I don't have that information, who authorized the payment, but I have the transfer instructions that were made. But I will check in our records. Probably.
Yes. We would like to, at least for the purposes of clarity, I think it's important that you provide the authorization for money to be released without an advance payment guarantee. And any record you have that shows that, in fact, the issue of the advance payment guarantee was even discussed. This is a very short agreement. I do not see how anyone can overlook the agreement. The clause itself is a 3-page agreement, 2.5 pages, 3 clauses, and 3.2.2 is the one that says the supplier should provide security. So go on with your story. So the supplier was paid.
Sorry, just a bit of background check on the supplier. Were they a known counterparty to you? Have you dealt with them in the past? This shipper. First of all, where are they located?
In Holland, in the Netherlands.
Netherlands.
Yes, sir.
Not Germany. You've dealt with them before. Who are they?
Yes, sir. It's a company that had delivered a project for the GPA around 2009 for the rehabilitation of the then Barajali Ferry.
Okay. So they had performed under that contract?
Yes, sir.
This time they defaulted?
They defaulted this time.
And there was no fallback? You were open, no fallback on how to recover the money?
No, sir.
That was not taken care of in the contract?
Sir, as I explained, there was a provision to secure the payment, but it was not processed accordingly.
So what was the basis for choosing them over other suppliers? Just that one single delivery in 2009?
Yes, there was a request for quotation from about 6 overseas firms, and they emerged to be the most responsive.
Responsive or the cheapest? Did you choose them on the basis of price?
Price, yes, sir.
So they were the cheapest?
They were cheapest, sir.
Okay. Counsel, over to you. Go ahead. So they were cheapest.
Yes, and at the time they were also doing some works for Gambia Groundnut Corporation. I think they were building some tugboats at the JGC site at Denton Bridge.
There was a track record of performing in the Gambia?
Yes, sir. It was a company that was known to the Gambia.
Now, in terms of recovery, why was it difficult? I mean, did they change address? Did they disappear in thin air? Why was GPA so vulnerable?
Yes, in the recovery efforts, as I mentioned earlier, the address that was known to us, we sent several letters, but they were returned undelivered. And then we engaged our mission, the Gambian mission in Brussels, and they too made their search. And they came back with the information that they have information that the company is in liquidation. It's no longer in business.
Okay, thank you.
Just one question. You mentioned about AJ's Chambers mentioning that you could use Maya Brown for recovery, but I didn't quite get that. You said you decided not to go with that. When I mean your GPA. Is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am. There's no commitment from GPA to make payments to Mayor Brown for them to pursue the matter on behalf of the GPA.
Why was that? Would it have been because it's more costly? It's not cost effective, or what was the reasoning behind that?
I really can't tell, but the letter from Mayor Brown did suggest that from their experience, it doesn't seem to be a very complex matter to pursue, and that their fees normally should not exceed $40,000 US, and at the time they were requesting for a down payment of $10,000 US to pursue the matter.
I see. Okay, so now what efforts are being made now?
That was the last time that there was any effort to recover, and this was in 2016.
Okay.
I think I just want to add that I found this issue there. Then when I came back, I re-engaged and we wrote to the Gambian embassy in Belgium to pursue the matter, and they asked for the purchase order, the evidence of the advance payment, which we had submitted all those details. So that's the last correspondence that we had on this matter.
Okay. No, that's fine. I guess the efforts are being made, because even if a company is in liquidation, doesn't mean you can't recover what is due to you.
That's good.
Do you know how Mayor Brown was identified? Because I see a letter from Solicitor General complaining that I think it's one of the documents that you provided, that they were not, that you ought not to enter into international legal commitment without advice from the Ministry of Justice. Do you know how Mayor Brown was identified?
Yes, ma'am. When we were communicating with the mission in Belgium to try to recover, in one of our letters to the Attorney General's chambers, we had also intimated this position to them, and Mayor Brown were working with the Gambia Ports Authority on another arbitration matter, which was the Greek partners Gallia Holding. So that's how the issue of CISBA was introduced to them, and in our engagements with them, the Solicitor General advised that we should not deal with Mayor Brown directly on this matter without passing correspondence through the Attorney General's chambers.
What about the agreement that you signed? Was it done by a lawyer, this 2.5-page agreement, or was it provided by the supplier?
No, it was done in-house at the GPA.
You did it, or the supplier did it? Who drafted the agreement?
I wouldn't know.
You don't know who drafted the agreement?
No.
You don't know whether it was drafted by a lawyer at all?
No, ma'am.
But it was at least vetted by an in-house counsel, not so?
At this time, we do not have in-house counsel.
So you take it to external counsel to look at it before you sign? Or you were, no, I think it's bringing into questions the free hand you have as a management and certain implications on good governance. You don't take everything to the board. You decide what you do and then later inform the board, or you do a resolution after. Now, how much free hand do you have in getting 680,000 euros at risk? You are asked for 10,000 to pay for recovery efforts. The management decides against that. Even another 20,000 could have helped recover that. So, do you have a free hand with respect to your relationship with the board? They don't hold you accountable or question some of the decisions?
Sir, that does not happen.
What happens?
Usually.
What happens?
This was an issue that I believe at the time the management, because of the pressure, as I explained earlier, in a haste to procure the engines, overlooked certain procurement procedures. Because normally in procurement, the contract would have been modeled according to GPPA guidelines with all the guarantees to secure payments and the investment, which was not this case, because the standard GPPA contract would have addressed these issues.
But you have a guideline in-house to refer to when you have urgent matters that do not have to go through the usual way. Not so?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So in this case, was that the route that you chose?
No, sir.
Exactly. So these are anticipated. In case of urgency, we don't want to go through one by one. This is what we're supposed to do. Well, in this case, none of that was followed. Yes. And now the additional 10,000 or 20,000 euro to the lawyers, was that price too high to pay for recovery? Is that why, or was that just saying, let's cut our losses and run? We don't want to lose any more money. Just trying to understand the logic of deciding not to pay 10,000 after you got 680 at risk.
Definitely, sir. management were just not committed to commit the funds to recover. But all efforts were made to go ahead with the Mayor Brown overseas solicitors.
Thank you.
The last document in the bundle that you have provided is a letter from the Solicitor General, and on page 2 of that letter, they say this: the cost of initiating arbitration proceedings is very expensive, and so in this regard we advise that the first issue to ascertain before considering anything else is the status of Ship Bow or not, whether it's a legitimate company and whether it has been listed as bankrupt or undergoing bankruptcy proceedings. The reason why this must be ascertained is that given the expensive nature of arbitration proceedings, we must be certain that we are dealing with a legitimate company or a company that is not declared bankrupt to provide us with a realistic chance of recovering the funds owed to GPA. Was an investigation carried out by GPA concerning the status of the company? You said it was a legitimate company that you had dealt with in the past. Did you find out what had happened to it? Did it go into bankruptcy or insolvency?
Yes, ma'am. At the time when we sent letters to Ship's Bow and they were returned undelivered, apart from the Gambian mission in Brussels helping in locating them, the honorary consul of the Gambia in Holland also tried similar efforts. But the company, their last known address, there was no business being conducted on those premises. And equally, we did find out through the internet and got information that this same company, Ship's Bow, were involved in a claim that was made by the government of Tanzania against Ship's Bow for failing to deliver on a ferries project, I believe in excess of 2 million euros around the same time.
And so?
Well, these are some of the reasons why we believe that the company was no longer in business. And one of the technicians that worked on our projects under the company called Project Wise, he happens to be a gentleman who knows the owner of this Ship's Bow company, since they are all from the same country. And they had engagements in the past, and they worked on similar projects. But that gentleman also confirmed to us that the company is no longer in business.
Just that the companies just don't stop doing business. They have to be wound up, they have to be liquidated. And claims can always be made to the liquidator. So it doesn't seem to be that enough effort was really put to trying to recover these amounts. Can you put the documents together? There's just one, well, maybe it's not an inconsistency. You had a contract with Ship Bow to supply these engines for 680,076 euro. You received support of $1,475,000,000 from Taiwan.
Yes.
Now, that is much more than, isn't it, 680,000 euro?
Yes, ma'am. The 1.7 million from Taiwan, if converted at $46 to $1 at the time, would give $66,413,084, which is in excess of the amounts as per the contract with Ship's Bow.
So whose money did Ship Bow go with? Is it port's money or the money provided by Taiwan?
No, it was GPA funds, because GPA had already started the rehabilitation project by procuring the engines, and then the payments that were made from Taiwan came after the process had already started, when GPA had committed funds towards this project.
So that money went to the MAN company? the money from Taiwan didn't go to Shipbow, it went to this company that subsequently supplied the engines.
Yeah, no, the money came to GPA, and GPA paid the MAN company for the engines, and there was diesel center for the other sets of engines, because there were different sets of engines and steering and propulsion systems from a lot of other companies.
All right, let's have the document. And could you again endorse the statement accompanying the documents? Mr. Tambidu, one is quite worried about, as the commissioners have pointed out, the governance processes at Gambia Ports Authority. And the two of you have been there for a while. Hopefully the governance processes at Port Authority are being looked at very closely.
Yes, ma'am. It is true that the situation during these years has been very bad, and when I came back and saw this, that is why I recommend the process of recovery. However, it is important for the Commission to understand the issue that also there has been a change of management also. If you look at the sequence, the payment was made during the time of the earlier MD, ML Jiba, and in the interim, Jiba was removed and it was Sanyang who came back. So apparently when Sanyang came back, there was a bit of reluctance to incur extra GPA funds for the recovery. I think that has happened. That is why when I came back, I looked at the overall figure involved and recommends the process of recovery, at least to recover as much as what is possible, instead of just leaving it to go like that.
So what have you done? When you came back, you mean in 2017?
Yes. We wrote to the Belgian Council for the recommencement of the process, so that if they could have engaged or get in touch with Sipsbau, then a commitment would have been made for $10,000 or $20,000, at least to chase Sipsbau, since we knew that it was a company who has operated in the Gambia before, and there was a mistake or whatever resulted in a payment of over 300,000 euros without any bank guarantee. However, there should have been an interest in recovering the money rather than just keeping quiet, because there was a change of managing director.
But do you know whether this company exists now?
What I can confirm, Ma, is that during my time, they were doing commissioning and installation and not supply of engines. I think that is the mistake that happened in this process. They never supplied engines before. They were doing commissioning and installation. But they are experts in that area.
Mr. MD, we were told GPA couldn't go directly to MAN. They had to use an agent. That's why Shippower was used. Now, if you are using an agent who was not supplying, but were specialized in commissioning and
installation.
So you chose the wrong agent.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Thank you.
Sorry. No.
Could you have gone to MAN, or was that an impossibility? No. Could GPA have gone directly? Why was Shippower necessary?
Yes. Let me explain definitely what happened. When I was Director of Finance and when I was MD, this project came up. But because of the amount involved, I said it was not prudent, and they have never supplied engines before. They used to supply small spare parts and maintenance for us. So I returned the file to them that we will not be secured to make some big contracts with them, whilst they have not been in this area of business. We can buy direct. If man insisted that they would not deal with the ports, because SIPSBA was the agent, then we could have made a tripartite agreement where it could have passed through SIPSBA for their commission. However, the payments would go direct to man. However, that did not happen, unfortunately, in this case.
For the records, man insisted you used an agent.
No, definitely. I cannot comment. I cannot comment on that.
Because yeah, there is an issue of veracity of admission here. We were told you had to use an agent, Shipao, because man wouldn't deal directly with you. We want to know that is true.
I can't confirm that.
Mr. Jobate, were you there? Can you confirm to this commission that you couldn't deal directly with man, and that's why over 300,000 euros was put at risk?
No, I cannot confirm that man said they were not going to deal with us directly. What I can confirm is when we went for replacement of the same engines, when SIPSBA failed to deliver, man were a little bit reluctant to even send us an invoice because they knew that we had a pending issue with SIPSBA, which SIPSBA, they gave us information that SIPSBA had already contacted them on the same supply. So they could not bid at that time. So we had to engage man consistently until in the end they agreed to supply to us directly to replace what SIPSBA failed to deliver. But on record, there is no evidence to show that man said they would not.
Let me ask this one more time in a different way. Was the use of an agent optional? Yes or no?
No.
It was not optional?
No, because there was a request for quotation from 6 companies, including SIPSBA and man itself.
So you chose SIPSBA. You could have used man.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Just one, I don't know if it's a statement or a question, you can decipher. Mr. Tambi, you mentioned that, you had institutional knowledge about SIPSBA before what they could do, commissioning and installation. And I'm sure others at GPA also had that institutional knowledge also about what they could do. So in this case, it seems like they were just people pushing this agenda to just award SIPSBA the contract. Because if anyone even does due diligence, they should have known that. So I'm sort of finding it interesting that, the whole process was just waived in this instance, to just award them the contract when already everyone knows it's a failure from the start.
I think on that, Madam, is what I can comment on that is the GPA management, as my colleague here explained, had the option of not going with SIPSBA. And even if they had gone with SIPSBA, with a contract which says advance payment guarantee before any advance payment, they should have requested for the advance payment guarantee, even if they wanted to go with SIPSBA. However, that did not happen, but it is a fact that we could have gone direct to man. I think the evidence is there that we could have gone direct to man. What my colleague is just saying that man were reluctant to give us information after SIPSBA failed, because it's just logic that SIPSBA had already placed order with them or contacted them for the same engines. When GPA went direct to solicit for the same information, showing interest in buying, they did not want to bring in confusion. So they wanted to have a clear picture as to whether it's the same buyer for the same beneficiary or not. I'm sure when it became clear to them that SIPSBA definitely failed GPA, took the advance payment and disappeared, then they agreed to deal direct with GPA and accepted a payment from GPA and supplied the engines.
No, it makes
I agree with you. Definitely.
Yeah, it makes sense what man did. I just found it interesting that if you know known suppliers that deal with something and someone doesn't, why go with that person? I think all these could have been avoided, but it's fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Jabati, you have all the documents?
Yes.
Did this matter, did your auditors look at this matter?
Yes, ma'am. The National Audit Office did look at the matter.
Is there a report from the auditors?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it part of the bundle that you have brought for us?
No, ma'am.
Why not? We would like a copy of the audit report concerning this matter. We would like to know what the auditors said. Before national audit, okay, you don't have external auditors?
We do.
We do.
So how come it was the National Audit Office that was auditing this matter? Did your external auditors speak on it? Did your external auditors speak on it?
The external auditors did not cover this period for the ferries because they were in a backlog in terms of their annual audit.
Who? The external auditors?
No, ferries itself. The ferries as a department.
They were not audited?
They were in areas for audit. So
Who was in areas?
ferries for external audit. At the time that the national audit came in, ferries were already in a backlog as far as their external audit is concerned, because at the time they did not even complete 2011, 2012
Why?
external audit.
Why?
I think it has to do with the preparation of their accounts first.
They
And
could
the
not
auditors at the time were KPMG, I believe, and they had a 3-year contract which was about to phase out, and the new auditors were supposed to come in. So, but the new auditors said they cannot come in whilst there is already a backlog. So there was that issue of trying to address the non-performance of external audit for the years that were in arrears. But then in the interim, the government had sanctioned the National Audit Office to do an audit of the ferries, and this issue came in that report.
I didn't realize it was possible for an institution like any company not to have audited accounts at the end of the year. You mean for 2011, 2012, no audits?
Well, there was internal audit, but external audit was not done for ferries at that time.
But your law requires that every year you should be audited, and this includes all your subsidiaries. The ferry is a subsidiary.
It is, ma'am.
Is it a company?
Yes, it's a legal
Limited
entity.
liability company?
Yes, ma'am.
So even the Companies Act requires that you should have audited accounts for a company, and that there cannot be any excuse for not having audited accounts. What was the excuse for not having audited accounts for 2011 and 2012?
Ma'am, that's the information I have as part of the management team. But what the Director of Finance at the ferries at the time explained was this: anytime the issue came up in our management meetings, that they were already in arrears, and one of the external auditors, the contract had expired because they have a tenure of 3 years, and at the end of the 3 years, a new audit set of auditors were supposed to come in, and the earlier one phased out. But they were in that transition period, the new auditors not wanting to take office because there was already a backlog which needed to be cleared.
And this was acceptable to Ports Management, the parent company, as well as the Board of Directors of Ports?
No, it was not acceptable.
So what did they do about it?
The board gave several directives that the audit must be completed, and there's a lot of correspondence to that effect.
Was it ever completed?
Yes, right now I can confirm that we are clearing the backlog for the ferries audit, because the board requested us to ensure by hook or by crook that the accounts are up to date. And we are right now doing the audit. There is still a backlog, but right now, at long last, we are doing 15 and 16. 2015 and 2016 audit is currently on as we speak. Yes, to meet PACPEG requirement also.
I hope it was not by crook.
No.
I've never heard that term used in terms of corporate governance. Mr. Tambedu, so what happened to the accounts for 2011, 12, 13,
no.
14?
It was 2014 is what my colleague is just explaining. They had one of the...
Was it completed, 2012, 13, 14?
Yes, yes.
You have an audit report for those years?
No, 2014 is yet to be signed, because what the external auditors complained was that after the end of 2014, they raised some issues of post-balancing events, things that happened after the year end, which they wanted confirmation before they, because at times when your signing off happens after, let's say, 1 year or 2 years, they would want to reconfirm that the events as at the end of the balance sheet date 2 years ago and have not changed substantially to impact on the accounts. That was why they refused to sign off the audit.
Mr. Tambedi, what I'm trying to find out is whether 2011, 2013, which covers this story about Shibao,
no.
You have audited accounts for them?
Yes, we have up to 2013.
By the external auditors?
Yes.
Did they cover this issue?
No, they did not. They did not cover this issue, definitely.
It wasn't brought to their attention?
I don't think it was brought to their attention.
All right, since the National Audit has a report on it, can you provide the report of the National Audit? Was there any recommendation from the National Audit?
Audit Office. Yes.
What was the recommendation about this matter?
I think they raised a serious concern, just like what honorable commissioners are saying, that it looked like it's a sham company, and if I remember the wordings rightly, people need to be held accountable.
Was the recommendation implemented?
Implemented, it was not during my time.
No.
It wasn't implemented?
No.
Why?
No definitive answer, ma'am, but it was submitted to the managing director then from the National Audit Office. I myself was not privy to the final report, but during the exit meetings, I participated and the issue was discussed there, and some of the recommendations, like the MD is mentioning, it's what the auditors were stating.
Did the audit report go to the board? Audit reports are for boards, not for management. Did the audit report go to the board?
That was not...
No, it was not treated at the level.
Was there a management letter?
On this audit, yes.
On the National Audit, there was a management letter.
Yes,
could you add the management letter? So when I don't understand when you said there was an exit meeting, as if that was the final thing that happened. It went to the board of directors.
No, ma'am. Exit meeting, as in when the...
No, the audited accounts by the National Audit Office, the audit report, did it go to the board?
It was not treated at the board level.
So the managing director chose not to present it to the board. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I know it was submitted because we were informed that the exercise is complete and the final report has been submitted.
Sorry, what is the date of the report?
It must have been in 2016.
The audit report, it's dated, the one you have, yes.
Yes, ma'am. I don't have it here with me.
Oh, okay.
But I've just been
2016
asked to submit that report, but I didn't come with it today. But it must have been in 2016.
Did GPPA do a compliance review? GPPA, yes.
Yes, they do annual compliance review.
Did they pick up this issue?
On the audit, I don't remember.
Can you check first, please?
No, they would not normally pick up this, because if you did not do a procurement through them, for them, the way they work, they don't look at the bank payments and work backwards to see if all these payments met procurement regulations. They take your indent files and then go through them and mark you out of those indent files. That is why this issue...
So they will not pick this, because definitely they not follow their procedure.
Yes, yeah, they would not pick this up.
Wow, okay.
Let me have the bundle. There is just a matter one issue that I don't understand. It seems to me as if, at least during this period, and I hope it has not been perpetuated, It seems management is more important at GPA than the board of directors. Management takes decisions and chooses what to tell the board and what not to tell the board. Is that a correct, fair statement?
It did happen in the past, ma'am, but I don't believe it is what is happening right now.
When you have the audited, an audit report, it's not sent to the chairman of the board or the secretary to the board? Is it submitted to the management,
Yes, ma'am, it is submitted to the managing director.
And nothing is sent to the secretary, unless the managing director chooses to send it to the secretary. Is that it?
Yes, ma'am, the managing director will send it to the board for discussion.
I think you need to look at your processes. The board is not supposed to be there to rubber stamp what management does or to only consider what management puts before it. Management is subject to supervision by the board, and it's the board that's responsible for the institution, not management. Mr. Chairman, may I apply to have admitted?
Sorry, Mr. Tambedo, Mr. Juba, any of you can answer. Do you have external solicitors?
Yes, we do.
But do you run issues past them? I mean GPA, because it seems like a lot of these things maybe could have been avoided. If issues are, that's the reason for retainerships, I guess.
Yes, that's true. We do. Now we have retained, before also we used to have retained solicitors. However, maybe we have not been passing things to them for advice or for review. But we do, before and even up to now, we do have retained solicitors. We do.
Mr. Chairman, may I apply to have admitted documents relating to the procurement of ferry engines and also payments made to a company called Shipbouw in Holland. For the purpose of the record, it's spelled SCHEEPSBOUW in Holland.
statement dated 23rd April 2018 by Gambia Ports Authority to this Commission, grant by the Republic of China in Taiwan for Ferry's Rehabilitation Project 2013 plus related documents, admitted mark SC 81.
Mr. Jobati, what was the equivalent of the amount advance payment made? It was 384,677 euro or dollars? I see that you put dollars in your summary. Do you mean to say euro?
No, it was $384,677 plus 87,500 euros. There was a subsequent request for payment of 87,500 euros.
So what was this equivalent in dollars? Do you have it at the time?
No.
That was
46.
that Shibao absconded with. You don't have the equivalent sum in dollars?
No, we don't really.
This matter, did it come to the attention of the Office of the President?
Yes, because the report was submitted to the President's office.
What report?
Audit report. The audit report.
Okay.
It was commissioned by
Was there any reaction?
It was commissioned by them. Usman is just reminding me that it was actually commissioned by them.
Yes. What was the reaction of the Office of the President?
No, there was no reaction.
No reaction?
No.
Didn't you find that unusual? Or don't you find that unusual?
Yes, it is unusual, man.
Right. You said you have an internal audit. You have an internal audit.
Unit, yes, that's correct.
Did internal audit report on this matter to the board?
No, I don't remember. Internal audit sending any report to the board about this.
Does your internal audit report to your board? Do they provide quarterly audited reports to your board?
Well, now, yes, we have a board audit committee now in place, and they do report to the board.
Now, but in those days, they did not report to the board.
There was no board audit committee then.
But you still had an internal audit.
Yes, we had an internal audit reporting to the managing director.
Internal audit reports reported to the managing director?
Yes, ma'am.
I hope that is not still the arrangement. That internal audit
Now we have a board audit committee, which is chaired by a board member.
Do you have any compliance process? Somebody who would have said, alerted that, look, you know, the advance payment guarantee is not in place, so we cannot make this payment. Did you have any mechanism in place that could have spotted the fact that there was non-compliance as far as the contract was concerned?
Yes, ma'am. From the approving authority to the raising of the payment vouchers through to the processing of the payment, there's a whole chain where it could have been picked up easily. That there's
but my question, it could have been picked up, but it wasn't.
Yes,
was it the responsibility of anyone, then or even now, to look to say there is non-compliance, a compliance person? Do you have such a person?
The Director of Finance
Director
handles that. He has that function, the Director of Finance.
My final question, what is your financial mandate as Managing Director? The limit of how much can you spend without referring it to the board? Do you have a limit?
No, ma'am. What we have in place is limits of procurement to go to GPPA or to be handled in-house. But as far as limits are concerned, to go to the board, no, there are no limits. What you have to observe as MD is whatever needs board's approval. For example, in the budget, there is an annual budget process. So everything needs to be in that budget, and you seek the board's approval. Anything that you that you are spending, which is outside of the budget, you have to go back to the board for approval. And there are limits as far as GPPA procedures are concerned to go for open tender procurement, for example, or for request for quotes without going outside, without going open tender. But there are no Dalasi limits to say that the managing director cannot sign this amount. There are no limits like that.
No, I'm not talking about signing, I'm talking about approval. I mean, signing and taking the money out is important, but who approves? Anyway, you're saying procurement has to go to GPPA?
Yes, yes.
According to the Act. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions for these witnesses.
Just one quick one. So, on a day-to-day basis, the board has delegated the management of the authority to you.
Yes.
And you don't have to refer to them. So, it's only outside budget, yes, expenditure outside budget, that you have to go to them.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
So now the question is, in terms of board composition and the choice of chairman, do you have a say in it? Who appoints the board members, and what is expected of them in terms of output for good governance? Do they have any accountability to anyone, the board members?
Yes, I would say that before there has never been any accountability procedure as far as board members are concerned. However, a code of good governance was enacted, was approved by cabinet about a month ago, and board members are right now trained on its application at the Management Development Institute, organized by the Ministry of Finance. And the appointment of board members is done by the President in consultation with the minister related to the industry, to the enterprise.
The line minister?
Yes, the line minister.
Yeah, but one of the things we observe is you have various people, same people sitting in various different boards. Yeah. And in the end, it looks like looking after each other's back. Do you have that type of arrangement where there could be potential conflicts of interest? Because I am sitting on this board, you are sitting on that board, and in the end, the chairmen have to find each other somewhere drinking coffee and talking governance.
I think I would say that in the former regime, you have like a chairman being chairperson of, let's say, 3 institutions. However, with the current arrangement, I think we do not have much of the same person being board members in different institutions. Definitely, that is not happening right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I just have one question, but I'm going back to the hostel in Ghana.
The hostel, yeah.
Yes. What's the status of completion of the hostel? Is it completed?
I don't have the information here, but I will confirm. I can confirm. But from the progress report we had, it was substantial completion by the time we made the last payment.
Okay, can you just let us know? Please. Thank you.
Just one question. Mr. Tamberu.
Yes.
I think you mentioned this new dispensation by cabinet, yes, on the appointment of board members.
Yes.
And I believe you are saying that this system of interlocking directorships have been removed. Are you saying that, or are you just saying that it has improved?
No.
In other words, is there a rule that a director cannot be, or a chairman cannot be director or chairman of more than one governmental institution? Is there that rule? Or is it still possible for one chairman to be the chairman of 2 or 3 institutions as before? What is the present situation?
Your Worship, I think it is still possible. I would not say that there is a rule which discounts or disallows that to happen. But what I explained was that in the earlier boards, you had one chairman. For example, the GPA chairperson was the chairperson of Gambia Food and Feed Industry, and was the chairperson of NAWEC also.
Yeah.
And with the present board of members, I have not seen that happening. I'm not sure if there is any new law to stop that, but at least in practice, it is not happening.
What's your opinion? Is it good or bad?
No, it is not good for the same person or same group of people sharing cups of coffee at different board meetings.
Thank you very much for that opinion.
What can you do about it if you have an effective chairman? Accept it, move on, or protest against it? Do you have any leeway?
On that, Mr. Commissioner, I can say that MDs are consulted in the appointment of board members, definitely. And I was consulted in the appointment of my board members. So I assume that has happened with other public enterprises also. And what should happen is if you have undesirable board members or whom you think would not add value to your institution, I think the head of the institution should take it up with the line ministry in a professional manner and not select your board members, but at least give criteria on the experience or the exposures that you think would add value to your institution.
Have you ever voiced out any opinion, professional, on the output of your current chairman?
No, I have never had the reason to do that.
Think about it. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, just a follow-up question. It seems there have been some changes on governance. You're talking about Is there any provision? Maybe it would be interesting to provide us with a copy of this new governance document that has been put in place. In relation to the last question asked by Commissioner Seth, does it provide for any kind of performance what do you call it again, sir? I believe you have a staff appraisal process at GPA.
Yes, we do.
Do you have a performance appraisal process for the board?
For the board? No, ma'am, we do not have that.
There is no way of appraising your board and from time to time. It's not provided for in the new governance framework that's been put in place.
We can confirm once we bring
Well, provide a copy to us. You mentioned if you didn't have, if you had a director who wasn't performing, you would make maybe some.
Take it up with your line
ministry. What is the reporting line between you, managing director, and the line ministry?
No.
Is there any reporting line?
Yes, under the permanent secretaries, we are directly answerable to the permanent secretaries, to the board, through the board. The permanent secretary of the line ministry is always a board member.
Exactly.
As far as the GPA is concerned, yes.
Exactly. So it's a little bit disquieting when you start talking about having a line to the line ministry.
No.
Because as managing director, you're not supposed to have a line to the line ministry. You have your board. And if you have issues, you take it up with your chairman, not with the line ministry, because the PS is a director in the board. Is that not so?
Yes, I agree with you, Ma. It's just that the commissioner asked if I have a chairperson whom I'm not comfortable with.
The chairperson.
Yes, then you cannot discuss with that chairperson.
but my focus is on the output of the person.
Yeah.
Yes, because what we're looking at is, yes, the MD is answerable to the chairman, but what if the chairman is not au fait with your issues. Maybe the chairman just cannot handle some of your pressing issues to the point that you should be answerable to him. Is your chairman able to deal with you and tell you this is the way you should be in line? Those are the type of, you should have the right chairman.
The right chairman.
Yes.
Agreed.
Or all boards should not just
right
GPA.
Chairperson.
In terms of who is able to deliver output and put you as an MD in check. Because if everything that happens can slip, and the chairman will be told later on, there is no accountability. Then all the board does is collect benefits, emoluments, and just keep things floating. Do you see my point?
Agreed.
Just food for thought.
Yeah.
Nothing about the passing, but the output. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll rise and we'll be back at 2:30.